I would present this to my students and ask them how we can convert improper fractions to mixed numbers. And it starts off with a poll that students are able to answer. I asked my students how much they already know about improper fractions and mixed numbers so I can get a general idea of who had learned something about this in the earlier grades, who has ever heard these words before, or who doesn't know anything at all. The great thing is they have to click a button and submit, but the teacher is able to see each single student's answer. And this works really well as a formative assessment. It helps you see what students know and what they don't know. On this next slide, there is a picture for students to engage with. Because this is an introductory lesson, I do not expect my students to know how we can add these fractions to create a mixed number, but I can see them saying, okay, Miss Imran, this right here, based on what we learned in our previous lesson, this is 5/6 of a fraction. And this is also 5/6 of a fraction. So I can ask my students to look at this picture and tell me, how can I find out the total amount of pizza slices that I have? So if this is 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, I can then begin counting on this side to 6/6, 7/6, 8/6, 9/6, 10/6, which is our improper fraction. They can tell me their thoughts on this picture and illustrate, communicate, record themselves, put an animated picture using the GIF button. And this is the part that they absolutely love. And this is also the part that I have to give a disclaimer to them to not post anything inappropriate, anything not related to the lesson, and to keep it school friendly. The good thing is, if you are working in a middle school classroom or you want to be on the safer side, there is a way for teachers to approve pictures beforehand. That is one option, but another option is if a student accidentally posts something like a smiley face. Let's say a student was, because I've had my students do this, they post a smiley face, happy, this is not too bad. But let's say you don't want this in the feed, you can delete posts. This goes for any post that you feel that is unwanted. But students can simply, I've had students just type in improper fractions, and it's really good for their knowledge because now they get to see a lot of pictures that relates to the lesson. So this is a picture that someone can add, and you can see that these two circles represent 7/4. Students can see that it's 7/4 because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shaded in out of in total 2 circles that we have here. This right here, when I see a lot of words on the screen for students, I like to explain what is up there in simple terms. I would tell them what a mixed number is. It's made up of a whole number and a fraction. And then I would tell them the difference of improper fractions and proper fractions. Proper fractions is what we did in the previous lessons where we saw 3/4, 1/2, 5/6, whereas improper fractions are flipped and the numerator is larger than the denominator. So 6/5, 4/3, 7/6, and so on. The great thing about this Nearpod lesson is there was already a video embedded into the lesson, and it was such a great video for students to visually see what improper fractions and mixed numbers are. I use the option where the teacher plays, but there's also an option where students can play the video. I'm only going to show a very useful part of the video, which is this part that I absolutely loved, and the students loved, and were able to see what our lesson was about.
We made them all into 4.
So before I unpause, I want to explain
Then I would simply
this picture. There are 4 circles here, and the top picture represents students being able to see the mixed number. We have 3 whole numbers, and then 1/4 shaded in, the white part. So this top picture visually represents 3 and 1/4. Then in the bottom portion of the video, we see the person divide each circle into fourths.
would simply divide to equal parts. And now,
Once he divides each into fourths, students can see this is 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. They begin to count, and when they get to this one, they know we have 13 fourths or 13 of those white 1/4 pieces, which represents our improper fractions. And this part was amazing because they absolutely understood when they were able to see different forms, visual, videos, pictures. In the next one, we finally get to students trying a problem on their own. Right now, they have not been taught standard algorithm. They have not been taught how to convert mixed number to an improper fraction. It's simply using visuals. Absolutely love this tool because students can use the crayon to draw on here, split this in 1/2, this in 1/2, this in 1/2. And they can use the eraser in case they make a mistake. Let's say a student makes fourths, they can use the eraser to get rid of that. Great options. They can use text if they want to write any information down, shapes if that is needed, and images. And the teacher is able to see all their drawings here, which is another great way of classwork and making sure who is understanding the material and who is not. Now we move on to the standard algorithm of converting mixed numbers to improper fractions and vice versa. I go over this word with the students, and this is something we have been practicing all year. What is standard algorithm? And I tell my students it's a simple way of saying show your work. How are we doing the mathematical computations for the skill that we are learning? There's two types of learning that we typically do, which is visual learning and standard algorithm. This right here, I would go over with the students, more notes for them to see. I would have them copy down these steps. Then I would go on to show them an example. This is all for my guided instruction. And on the next slide, this one I also loved because it makes it a fun way for them to practice the skill being learned. I had my students do this with a partner, and they were able to work together to put the answers down. I'm just doing it for fun to show you how the tools work. Students can also use the highlighter if they want to, or let's say they want me to know, like I'll tell my students, if you're confused on one of the problems, why don't you use the red color to circle the problem for me so I can come over and guide you, and I'm able to see their work as they're doing it. On the next slide, there is additional video on showing students how to convert improper fraction to a mixed number using a visual model. For this one, I had the students play the video. I wanted them to see the video on their own without it being played in the classroom. And students have headphones that they are able to plug in and watch. This was another great video
Denominator 2/3 and
that helps students with the pictorial stage of learning. Drawing pictures in 5th grade is very important for fractions. For students to understand what a fraction is, the visual representations are significant to their learning. So I love Nearpod for emphasizing this so much. More practice for the students. And another thing I want to add during this feedback for Nearpod is I have my students for 3 periods. So I have them for a period 2, which is our accelerated math period, and then periods 3 and 4. It is about less than 2 hours, about 108 minutes. And this lesson, if students are taking their time, watching videos. I'm teaching along the way. This being an introductory lesson, this is something that would take up those 108 minutes, or maybe depending on how your students' learning styles are, maybe you might not even get through the whole thing. But more examples for them, same tools, highlighter, eraser, marker for them to shade in. In the next slide, my guided instruction again that you see. This was really fun for them because it's a matching game that the students could do. So once you click it and it doesn't match, an X appears. Students know that they need to fix their answer if that comes up. And then if it's correct, it tells you. I want to show you both. Most important part of a lesson. What did students learn? Which comes at the very end. But this game was also so phenomenal. The kids loved it. Number one, the kids love playing games. Number two, they love competition. So everyone was able to log in and they were racing, climbing to the top. Once players log in, you would be able to see, but this was amazing. This right here is a way of me seeing what students have learned, explaining how they can convert. Students can tell me how they can draw the picture, or they can explain how they did the standard algorithm. In the end, I asked students, this is their exit ticket on how they feel being able to convert improper fractions and mixed numbers. And once again, I can see their answers here when I click teacher. What is the most interesting or surprising thing you learned about this lesson? They can add their pictures and so on.